Picture this. 5:47 in the morning. The sky sits in that dark purple shade right before sunrise. The neighborhood is dead quiet until it isn't. A deep, brutal diesel engine explodes through the silence. The kind of sound that rattles your chest and drags you straight out of sleep. I jump out of bed, heart already pounding, adrenaline kicking in hard. I rush outside without thinking. No shoes. No shirt. Just boxers. Bare feet hit ice-cold gravel in my driveway. And then my stomach drops. There it is. The horizon. My 29-foot Boston whaler. The boat that holds every dollar I ever saved. Hooked to a tow truck like it's some junk car being hauled off. Rolling away from me, slow and steady like it belongs to someone else. 3 years of double shifts. Missed weekends. Overtime checks. Every sacrifice I made to afford that boat is gone in under 60 seconds. I'm standing there shaking in the morning fog, watching my future disappear around the corner. And at the end of my driveway, perfectly placed like she planned it all along, stands Patricia Sterling, president of the Oak Haven Reserve Property Owners Association. She looks like she stepped straight out of a luxury catalog. Arms crossed. Designer yoga outfit that probably costs more than my first car. That smile on her face isn't friendly. It's cold. Satisfied. Like she just hit the jackpot. Your vessel exceeds the aesthetic dimensions of the neighborhood, Caleb, she says. Her voice sounds sweet, but it's poison underneath. We're simply enforcing community standards. My hands are shaking. Not from the cold. From rage. The kind of anger that makes you want to throw your life away in one bad decision. I'm ready to scream. Ready to fight. Ready to do something I can't take back. Then the tow truck's tail lights vanish. And that's when I remember something. One tiny detail. Something I never told anyone. A secret buried deep in legal documents. Something Patricia and her little group of elites have no idea exists. That crystal clear body of water everyone loves. Lake Serenity. The lake their private boating club treats like their personal playground. I own it. Every drop of water. Every inch of the smooth lake bed. And soon, Patricia Sterling is going to learn what happens when you try to steal from someone who has the legal power to erase your access to the lake entirely. But before I drop that bomb, you need to know how a guy like me ended up here. My name is Caleb Thorne. I'm 52. I'm a diesel mechanic. I've spent my life elbow deep in engines. I lived above my shop in a tiny apartment for 20 years. Hands stained with oil. Clothes smelling like WD-40 and burnt coffee. Always scraping by. Everything changed because of my uncle Silas. Silas was the family legend. The guy who lived alone on a beautiful lakefront property in Oak Haven Reserve. Developers offered him 7-figure checks. He refused every one. Neighbors called him a hermit. I called him free. So when his lawyer called and said Silas left me everything, I honestly thought it was a prank. My wife, Elena, and I drove out there on a rainy Tuesday. And the second we stepped out of my beat-up pickup truck, everything felt different. 3 acres on Lake Serenity. A private dock stretching into water so clear you could see the stones at the bottom. A house that felt calm. Safe. That first morning as the owner, breathing air that smelled like pine and clean water instead of exhaust fumes, I felt like I didn't belong. Like I had snuck into a place meant for someone else. Because Oak Haven Reserve wasn't built for guys like me. It was 15 mansions priced between $1 million and $3 million. A place where people talk stock options over espresso and drive luxury SUVs that never touch dirt. Lake Serenity itself was stunning. 47 acres of glassy water surrounded by massive homes owned by retired CEOs, surgeons, and tech moguls. And then there was me. Work boots. Faded tattoos. Trying not to stand out. Then I met Patricia Sterling. And paradise turned into a prison run by HOA rules. She was 58. A high-end real estate broker who knew the sale price of every house on the street and loved using it as leverage. Perfect hair that never moved. A smile that never reached her eyes. She was married to Grant Sterling, owner of Sterling Marine, the biggest boat dealership in the tri-state area. Let that sink in. They lived in the showpiece house. The crown jewel. And parked at the community dock was their 35 FTC Ray yacht. A floating monument to their ego. For 3 years, Patricia ruled the neighborhood like a tyrant. Every rule bent to favor her circle. The war started in my second week. I was backing my pride and joy, the horizon, into my driveway when I heard those heels clicking behind me. That sound still flips a switch in my brain. She stood there, eyes scanning my boat like a judge passing sentence. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said. But her tone said I worked there. "That is quite an imposing vessel. You'll want to review our aesthetic guidelines." Section 7. 3. Oversized recreational equipment disrupts visual harmony. Here's the part she didn't mention. Clause 7. 3 was originally meant to ban RVs and rusted trailers. Fair enough. Nobody wants trash blocking the view. But the previous December, while half the neighborhood was vacationing in Aspen or Florida, Patricia quietly pushed through an amendment. Recreational vessels added. Maximum length set at 25 foot. My boat was 29 feet. Her husband's yacht was 35 feet. Pure hypocrisy floating in plain sight. When I brought it up at my first meeting, pointing out that the Sterling Standard, her boat was clearly over the limit, but she looked down at me with that smug half-smile and said, "The community dock follows separate maritime guidelines. Caleb, our vessel supports lake security operations." Right. Because a 35-foot yacht is exactly what you need to guard a quiet, gated lake from absolutely nothing. That was the moment I understood I wasn't dealing with logic. I was dealing with someone who could twist facts until they matched her story. What I didn't know was how far she was willing to go. 3 days later, I woke up to a thick envelope taped to my front door. Inside was a bill for $1,250 for unauthorized vessel retrieval, plus daily storage fees at, of course, Sterling Marine, her husband's business. They demanded proof that I had modified my boat to comply before they'd release it. Which is insane because you can't just cut 3 feet off a fiberglass hull. They were holding my boat hostage, forcing me to pay her family to get my own property back. "This is extortion," I told Elena, my hands shaking so badly I spilled coffee across the counter. They weren't just fining us. They were trying to drain us. And Patricia was only warming up. 2 days later, certified mail arrived from Blackwood and Associates, the HOA's legal pit bulls. They threatened property liens if I didn't comply. Threatened to take my house over 4 feet of fiberglass. I stormed the county courthouse like a man on a mission, channeling my Uncle Silas, digging through dusty records until my eyes burned. That's when I found it. The smoking gun. The original 1987 covenants had 0 boat restrictions. The so-called amendment had been approved with only 7 homeowners present out of 15. State law required a quorum. It wasn't valid. Not even close. That's when I became the neighborhood investigator. Tape measure in hand, camera ready, documenting every violation in plain sight. Dr. Aries Thorne, good guy, no relation, owned a 27-footer. Tom Miller had a 30-foot cabin cruiser. Both over the limit. Both untouched. Patricia ignored them because they were insiders or stayed quiet. I built a spreadsheet so detailed it would make a forensic accountant proud. Every example of selective enforcement. Every double standard. Every crooked decision. Patricia responded with a flood of petty citations. My boat trailer was Arctic white instead of approved slate gray. The lettering on my boat was excessively visible. My blue tarp was labeled visually aggressive. Within a week, fines hit $2,100. When I filed a formal complaint about her yacht, she hit me with a harassment of board members violation. Then it spread. Late one night, Mrs. Gable knocked on my door, shaking. "She got me too," she whispered. "Caleb, I've lived here 15 years. Suddenly my patio furniture violates code. She's targeting anyone who won't fall in line." That's when it clicked. This was never about rules. It was about control. About breaking anyone who didn't fit her image of the perfect resident. Then came the knockout blow. A property lien filed against my home for unpaid fines totaling $4,000, growing daily. On top of that, she revoked my guest parking privileges. My side hustle clients, the people whose engines I fixed to pay the mortgage, couldn't park anymore. She was trying to bankrupt me, isolate me, and push me out. I hired attorney Samantha Cross. Calm voice. Sharp eyes. An HOA nightmare specialist. She reviewed my files and smiled. "This amendment is legally void," she said. "No notice. No quorum. It's a house of cards." For a moment I felt relief. Then Patricia escalated. My trailer tires were slashed in my own driveway. Brand new tires ruined. My security cameras mysteriously stopped working. Anonymous reports flooded county offices. Environmental inspections. Fire safety checks. Code enforcement visits. Every inspection passed, but the warning was obvious. Challenge her and your life becomes chaos. But the pressure backfired. It brought people together. Dr. Thorne. Mrs. Gable. Tom Miller. Even Mrs. Jenkins, the quiet widow. We started meeting in my workshop, cheap beer in hand, surrounded by sawdust and motor oil, trading stories. We weren't just neighbors anymore. We were organized. Then Samantha called, her voice unsteady. "Caleb, get to the courthouse." "No." I found something in your Uncle Silas's deep property records. Something tied to water rights. It predates the entire development. She wouldn't explain over the phone, but the tone in her voice made my skin crawl. Patricia thought she was crushing a blue-collar nobody. She had no idea she'd stirred something ancient. The county assessor's office buzzed under harsh fluorescent lights, smelling like dust and forgotten paperwork. Samantha spread a fragile yellow document across a scratched oak table. Dated 1956. "Caleb," she said, eyes locked on mine. "Sit down." My coffee went cold halfway to my mouth. "This isn't just land," she said quietly. "Your Uncle Silas didn't buy property next to the lake. He bought the lake." The document spelled it out. Mineral rights. Water rights. Exclusive control over all 47 acres of Lake Serenity. And in that moment, everything changed. But Samantha wasn't finished. She slid one more document across the table. The Serenity Conservation Trust Charter from 1987. She tapped it once and said, Silas wasn't thinking ahead. He was playing 4D chess while everyone else was stuck on checkers. Silas had created a trust that controlled the lake bed itself, with a 50-foot buffer around the entire shoreline. The POA, Patricia's little kingdom, didn't own a thing. They only held a revocable recreational license. Revocable. The word landed hard. No one spoke. Then Samantha dropped the next fact. The trust had been collecting $15,000 a year in license fees from the community. That money had sat untouched for 36 years, quietly stacking up to over $500,000. And as the sole trustee, Silas had full legal authority over every cent of it. Then came the real shock. Sterling Marine, Grant Sterling's company, had been using the lake for commercial storage and testing for years. They never paid the trust a single dollar, which meant they owed back fees. Huge ones. I leaned in and whispered, the truth hitting me all at once. While she's trying to take my house over 3 feet of boat length, I could legally drain the entire lake if I wanted to. Basically, Samantha said with a tight smile. But there's more. The license had a clause. Use was contingent on maintaining peaceful community relations and banning discriminatory harassment. Patricia's entire campaign of intimidation wasn't just ugly. It was a clear breach of contract. I walked out of the courthouse feeling unstoppable, ready to wipe out her whole operation in one move. That's when Samantha grabbed my arm. Not yet, she said. No explosions. We do this clean. Precise. Let her make it worse. So we waited. We let Patricia believe she was winning. And she ran with it. The harassment crossed into criminal territory. An emergency POA meeting was called. It was a setup from the start. Her loyalists voted to ban all mechanical maintenance on residential properties. A rule designed to crush my livelihood directly. Then the police showed up. Officer Reynolds knocked on my door during breakfast. Patricia had accused me of making terroristic threats at the meeting. It was a lie. Thankfully, Dr. Thorne backed me up and described my calm behavior in detail. While Reynolds spoke with neighbors, the story began to change. Tom Miller mentioned his slashed tires. Mrs. Gable talked about vandalism on her property. Reynolds stopped questioning me and started writing everything down. A pattern was forming. Patricia felt control slipping and went straight for the kill. She filed for foreclosure, claiming unpaid fines now inflated to $6,800. Elena sat at the kitchen table surrounded by legal notices, her hands shaking, tears running down her face. Maybe we should just leave, Caleb? I looked at her, thought about Uncle Silas, and felt something lock into place inside me. No, I said. We're not running. Panicking, Patricia launched a whisper campaign. She told neighbors I was unstable. Dangerous. A ticking time bomb. Then she made the mistake that ended everything. She decided to get personally involved. Wednesday morning, I opened my workshop and froze. Total destruction. $15,000 in precision tools ruined. Engine blocks shoved over. Oil spread across the floor. And on the wall, sprayed in jagged red letters, leave or else. It felt like someone had violated my home. My safe place. But it was also exactly what we needed. After earlier malfunctions, I had installed hidden backup cameras. Tiny high-def lenses her people never noticed. I watched the footage with my heart pounding. 2:47 a.m. A Sterling Marine truck pulled up. Grant Sterling stepped out with 2 men. And then I saw her. Patricia. Sitting in the passenger seat, window down, giving orders like a commander. She was directing the felony herself. Officer Reynolds watched the video and went silent. Holy hell, Caleb. This is breaking and entering, grand vandalism, conspiracy. And she's running it. This was no longer civil. This was prison-level crime. Still unaware she'd been recorded, Patricia spiraled. She filed a restraining order, claimed she feared for her life, then filed false police reports accusing me of threatening to blow up the neighborhood. She was trying to suffocate me with paperwork. The hearing was set for Friday. She tipped off Channel 8, selling herself as a heroic HOA president protecting her town from a deranged mechanic. I walked past the cameras with Samantha, silent, knowing what was coming. Inside the courtroom, Judge Sterling, no relation thankfully, listened as Patricia lied under oath. She claimed I threatened her at her home Tuesday night. She claimed she was asleep during the workshop break-in. The confidence was bold. Almost impressive. Samantha stood. Calm. Controlled. Regarding Tuesday night, she said, "We have courthouse security footage showing Mr. Thorne was with me in my office 3 miles away." Patricia's face drained of color. "And as for her alibi," Samantha said, pressing play. The courtroom screen lit up. Patricia sitting in the truck, dome-like glowing, directing the destruction of my workshop for everyone to see. The silence inside the courtroom felt unbearable. The judge looked at Patricia, then at the screen, then back at Patricia with a stare that left no room for doubt. "Mrs. Sterling, the evidence shows you lied under oath about your location and your involvement in these crimes." The restraining order was denied on the spot. The judge immediately referred the case to the district attorney. But that was not the end. The emergency POA meeting was still happening that night. Patricia believed this was where she would finish taking control of the neighborhood. What she did not know was that I was not showing up as just another homeowner. I was coming as the landlord. The Oak Haven Reserve Clubhouse was filled wall to wall. The tension was obvious. Cheap cologne hung in the air, trying and failing to cover the fear underneath it. Every household was present. 15 families who understood that by the end of the night, everything would change. Patricia sat at the head table, rigid and defensive. Her confident image was cracking, her eyes constantly scanning the room. Her husband, Grant, was nowhere to be seen, likely destroying paperwork somewhere. But the guest list had grown unexpectedly. A Channel 8 investigative reporter stood in the back, camera recording. Officer Reynolds was posted near the door, arms folded. 2 men in suits guarded the entrance, clearly not there for community snacks. Federal agents. Patricia raised the gavel, her hands unsteady. "This meeting is called to order to address the immediate removal of dangerous elements from our..." "Sit down, Patricia," I said as I stood. I didn't raise my voice, but the room went quiet instantly. Samantha placed her briefcase on the table and opened it. The sharp sound echoed through the room. "I am Attorney Samantha Cross," she said clearly, making sure everyone could hear. "I am here to state that the Oak Haven Reserve POA has zero authority over the water, the docks, or the shoreline." She lifted the paperwork for everyone to see. The 1956 deed. The trust records. "Mr. Thorne is the sole trustee of the Serenity Conservation Trust. He owns the lake." The reaction was immediate. Mrs. Gable gasped loudly. Dr. Thorne froze mid-note. Patricia jumped to her feet, shouting, "This is fake. This is fraud. You cannot just..." "It is recorded, verified, and legally binding," Samantha said, cutting her off. Her tone was calm and final. "Due to your documented harassment, discrimination, and criminal behavior, which violates the recreational license, Mr. Thorne is enforcing his rights as trustee." I stepped forward and met Patricia's stare. "Effective immediately, Sterling Marine's commercial access to the lake is revoked. You owe the trust $89,000 in unpaid fees due now. And the current POA board is officially dissolved for violating the trust charter." She tried to take my boat. I took everything she used to control others. That was when the FBI agent stepped forward. "Patricia Sterling, you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit wire fraud, filing false police reports, and civil rights violations." The sound of the handcuffs closing ended the room's silence. She was escorted past the neighbors she had intimidated for years, all of it broadcast live on the evening news. Applause started slowly. Dr. Thorne. Then Mrs. Gable. Then the entire room. Not out of spite but relief. The outcome changed everything. Patricia was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison and ordered to pay restitution. Grant's business collapsed. His assets were seized. I invested the $500,000 from the trust into a full environmental restoration. We removed invasive weeds, restocked native fish, and built a new accessible pier. That was where Widow Jenkins's grandson caught his first base. We eliminated the POA and replaced it with a rotating community council where every vote mattered. 6 months later, during the first Lake Serenity Festival, I stood on the dock with Elena, watching children play freely without fear of fines or warnings. A little girl named Emma pulled on my sleeve. "Mr. Caleb, my grandma says you saved the neighborhood. Did you fight a monster?" I knelt down and smiled. "Something like that. I just reminded a bully that the lake was never hers to take." As the sun set across the water, I knew Uncle Silas was watching. He didn't leave me property. He left me responsibility. Ownership is not about control. It is about care. We replaced fear with trust and power with fairness. That mattered more than any mansion. But I'll leave you with this question. I could have banned everyone and kept the lake for myself. After everything they did to me, would you have shared it? Or would you have locked the gates and kept it private? Let me know in the comments. Because sometimes justice is not about revenge. It is about changing the rules entirely.